What up?
What's up, man?
You got the product?
Yeah, I got the product. You got the money?
Yeah, but let me see the product first. Oh.
Where's the money?
Got it right here. Left a little something extra in there for you.
Yeah, man. Look at it.
Hot. It's hot.
Ordering from a chef doesn't have to be so discreet. Download the authentic Chef to You app and get chef-prepared meals ordered straight to your door with the click of a button. Download today.
You call this value? I don't think so. Treat yourself to more with Beef O'Brady's value menu all day, every day from $6.49. Kick back and watch your favorite sports. Relax and recharge. Let Beefs put the U back.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another session of Sports Talk 49, always and exclusively on anywhere you can find podcasts, streaming everywhere, and of course, always on NSPN. Today, well, I wouldn't call him, a guest. He's been here more than once. He's basically family. I'm talking about Mike Deeson. He's been family to the Tampa Bay area for a very long time. If you guys don't know Mike, I'll just give you a quick rundown about him. He's an American investigative journalist who is known for his work at WTSP television in Tampa Bay, Florida from 1982 to 2017. And he's done this for a very long time. He's known this area. He's known how everything's grown up here for so long and the changes and everything, and things are still changing. But yet, Mike finds a way to always touch us out here in Tampa Bay. Mike, how you doing?
Like I am doing terrific, and you are right. I'm part of your family. You're my friend. You're my family. Yeah. I'm delighted to be with you.
Absolutely. So if you guys noticed, there was a song playing there at the beginning. Now, everybody knows I can't sing worth a lick, but Mike here has made several songs. One was nominated for an Emmy, although it did not, get him the W, but as long as you got a horse in the race. Mike, why don't you tell us about what that song was?
Yeah, but let me also say I can't sing worth a lick either. I think I'm a pretty decent songwriter. I've written about close to 1,000 songs. For 15 years, I was the regional coordinator for the Nashville Songwriters Association and taught songwriting once a month. And I was in Chicago earlier this year when the Rays played the Cubs. I went to all 3 games at Wrigley. Still a wonderful spot to see a baseball game. If you haven't been to Wrigley, you got to go there. But I'm rooting for the Rays, which feels and felt really weird because I grew up a Cubs fan. I played baseball in high school, and I'm so old. When I was in high school, the Cubs only played day games. They didn't draw much, and Wrigley gave season passes to the grandstands and the bleachers to all varsity baseball players. So I went to a ton of Cubs games and was a Cub fan. But when I moved down here 41 years ago, and I rooted for the Cubs till we got the Rays, of course, and I still when they're not playing the Rays. But I birthed the Rays. I covered them from the beginning. I covered the move to get the White Sox, to get the Mariners for expansion when we lost the Giants. I spent the last 2 weeks of the baseball season, whatever year it was, I think it was 91, when Vince Namoli, the original owner of the Rays, bought the San Francisco Giants, and baseball wouldn't let them move here. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the coverage of the Rays. And quick story here. Vince was really mad at me at the baseball meetings where we got the Rays because we broke the name Tampa Bay Rays, Devil Rays, actually. I got a beep, because we didn't have cell phones back then, from a friend of mine who I stopped on 60 on the way to Orlando, and he said, the name of the team is going to be the Devil Rays. And I said, well, how do you know that? He said, well, I have a friend who has a printing company, and I was over there visiting him, and he showed me the thousands of Devil Ray shirts that they were printing on order for the Rays. So I called the vice president of baseball operations on Highway 60. And his name was John Higgins. And I said, John, how does the name Tampa Bay Devil Rays sound? And honestly, I counted 1,001, 1,002 to 1,010 before he caught his breath and said, Mike, don't use that. You'll embarrass yourself. You'll embarrass yourself. I said, John, your silence speaks volumes. So we went with the name. Vince came. He was so mad at me. But Vince got mad at people all the time, and he forgot about it a couple of weeks later. But he did walk in, and he said, short-term gain, long-term pain. But that's another story. And as a matter of fact, when the Rays were in the first World Series with the Phillies, where John Higgins, in one of the games, threw out the first ball, we did an interview in center field. And I said, John, do you remember that call from me when I was on the way to the baseball meetings to cover it? He said, Mike, I will never forget it as long as I live, because I had to walk into Vince's office, and he had a terrible temper. And he said, I had to tell him that you were going to break the name Devil Rays that night. And Vince wanted to do it all. So anyway, I've been a Rays fan a long time, is what the bottom line is. So I'm in Chicago watching all three Rays games at Wrigley. Unfortunately, they lost the first two. And I went with my brother and my niece who live in Chicago and big Cub fans. And as we're getting to the ninth inning of the game, as the Rays are losing, my brother says to me, you know we're going to have to stay and sing if the Cubs win. And I said, what? Because they didn't do that when I was a kid. And he said, yeah. When the Cubs win, we sing Go Cubs Go afterwards. And I started thinking about it. And I said, well, man, we could use something that for the Rays. So I came home. Went into my home studio where I'm talking to you from right now. I'm very fortunate. My home studio is a TV studio, a radio studio, and a music studio. It's my happy place.
And you have your own media company as well, right?
Yeah, I do. I have my own media company. And so I wrote the song and came up with a couple of versions of it, had it recorded by some singers, and then edited the video to go along with it. And what I'm doing is testing it on Facebook now, and I have had tons of positive comments. And my hope is that the Rays, and I have some friends in the front office of the Rays, after I test market it, I'm going to take it to them and say, what do you guys think? And the idea is Rays win the game, they blow the horn like they do, and then we'll sing the song. And I figure the chorus, hooray for the Rays, hooray for the Rays, is easy to sing. The words would be up on the Giants scoreboard. and it'll build some spirit for the Rays. That's the genesis of the whole thing.
I think you're onto something there, and we'll keep it going. As a matter of fact, I'm going to reach out to some sources I know as well. I'm not sure how much you listen to 94.1. Joey Franchise is a well-known guy in this community who runs the radio station over there. I kind of pitched this to Joey and see if he can probably get it played on the air. Joey, if you're watching it, yes, I'm talking about you. See if you can play this song on the air. See if these guys catch it. We all know you're
1 minute. I try to keep it really short, easy to sing, and keep it, short enough where we can sing it, bam, and get into the parking lot and get out of there.
And, as me and you briefly talked off air a little bit, and I'll say it here again, and it's true, we have no culture here. And we're like, well, what do you mean by no culture? What I mean is like Mike said, you go to Chicago, they got their own song. Bears got a history. Everybody's got some type of a history. Tampa Bay is just a big melting pot. Maybe you could market that it's a melting pot. I don't know. There's just got to be some type of culture here. And I just think these owners, the Lightning do a great job running an organization, but there's always an opportunity to make more money. Same as the Glazers. We don't have a basketball team here, but there's like you can market some type of food and call it Tampa Bay's own. Some type of end zone celebration, some type of victory song, some type of something that you can get going. And like you said, all it takes is a couple people to like it, and it spreads like wildfire. And then, then it becomes the culture of the area. People are like, oh, I like that about this team. Maybe I'll like this team because I like the way they do that. Who knows? But I just think it makes sports even more interesting and fun for everybody when you have something that is historically attached to you.
It's true, Blake. And I got on Facebook, and if anybody wants to see it on Facebook, my page is called Mike Deeson. Pretty clever, huh? And anyhow, I got a lot of grief from my friends whom I grew up with saying, you've abandoned the Cubs. You can't do that. And I said, look, I loved the Cubs growing up, but I live in Tampa Bay. I did birth this team. These are my guys. I know the Cubs uniforms. I don't know the Cubs. The Rays, I know them. I go to the games. Same with the Lightning. Same with the Bucks. I watch the games now. The game on Friday night. Now I know this Wednesday, but Friday night to me typified the Rays since we've had the tough times. Okay, we weren't hit. We hit a 3-run home run to start off the game, and we had the bases loaded with nobody out, couldn't score, and then Jose Siri hits a single, turns it into a double. Yeah, Betancourt couldn't lay down the bunt. And by the way, BA did the exact right thing to explain a bunt. A bunt is, I was not a good hitter. I was a pitcher in high school, but I could always bunt because the way to bunt is hold the bat and play catch with the ball. Right. You don't lunge at it. And that's what Betancourt kept trying to lunge at it. You let the ball hit the bat.
Yeah,
and it goes anyway. So he couldn't do it. Then hits the fly ball to right field, and then Yandy Diaz, who still got a pulled groin, hits that deep fly. So Siri had gone to third on Betancourt's fly out, then scores on the sac fly. But anyway, I love the Rays. I watch them all the time. If I'm not at the game, I'm watching them on TV, or even if I'm doing something with my wife, who's not a big sports fan by any means. I've got it on my iPad or my iPhone. I watch all the games, and I go to the games. Took my grandson, who is 5 years old, to his first Rays game a couple of weeks ago with my son Andrew, who's a friend of yours, Blake. We had a great time, and the Rays are great. It was a Sunday. He got to run the bases. He plays t-ball, and now he's going to coach pitch and all. And he was so impressed. I know that will build a memory for him as he gets older.
Yep.
And so that's how you build up a fan base. So when he's our age, hopefully the Rays have been here for a long time by then, he will never forget that he ran the bases on a major league field at the Rays game. I wasn't on a major league field until I was in broadcasting and did interviews and all that stuff. And he was 5 years old and ran the bases. What a great tradition. And so, I love the Rays. I love all of our teams. It's great to root for the hometown team. Even though I grew up in Chicago, I've been here 41 years, more than half my life. I'm a Tampa person, now. And if this song can contribute to the culture and get people into the Rays, I am all the more happier.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about America's pastimes and things like that, I think baseball became almost a lost art for a guy like you. Baseball, when I mean like you, I mean like the era that you guys grew up in. I was almost, when you say the word golden, the world is a different perspective at that time. What I mean is today you have everything in your face now. You have access to everything.
Right.
So my point I'm trying to make is that in your era, your imagination and creativity was a lot because you didn't have all those amenities that you have now in today's age. So
wait, let me tell you while you say that.
Yeah.
In 1964, I was in high school then. I'm really old. The Bears beat the Giants in the NFL championship game. There wasn't
it's before the leagues merged together.
Right. Believe it or not, the game was blacked out in Chicago because they had the blackout rules, and I know I had to have been sold out. But I listened to that game on WGN radio in my parents' dining room as the Bears beat the Giants. It's so weird. The championship game, what wasn't televised, but yeah, baseball. All the Cubs games were televised on WGN. The Sox games were as well. If you were in the north side of town where I grew up, you were a Cubs fan. South side, you were a Sox fan. And I just love the Cubs, and I have memories of going to the Cubs games with my dad and my brother and all. And so it was ingrained in it. And then with everything in our face now, you're right. And baseball's a slower game. I mean, but I must say, in a baseball game, I have never been to a game where even if I didn't know the person sitting to my right or left, we become friends because you talk back. It's got a nice pace. And I think the new rules have changed the game so much for the better. I love the pitch clock. I like the wider bases and all. And I think this has really improved the game. And attendance is up in Major League. So that was a terrific rule that they put in. And I think there's still something beautiful about baseball.
Yes, that's what I was saying. America's pastime, when you talk about your grandson going to those games, those used to be the things, the song Take Me Out to the Ball Game and things like that. That's what you did with your son or your daughter, whoever. You just make those memories. And whether or not they hold on to the sports, that's up to them later on in their life. But it was kind of something you always wanted to take somebody to, because people always tend to remember games, whether they won or lost. Everybody has their stories of when they fell in love with whatever sport it was. And baseball used to be that thing. Baseball used to be the always go-to. Everybody had the glove in the house. You had some type of baseball, and now, like I said, with everything changing, it's kind of like what you're really into as far as sports. Some people lean more towards one than the other, but they like them all. You just get in what you like the most. But yes, baseball used to be that sport where you got introduced to sports and you just kind of branched off from that. So it's awesome that you still keep that old ways of trying to introduce young minds and people into sports and letting them experience things that you need out of experience till later on in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think sports is a great way for kids to learn teamwork, sportsmanship, that you don't always win in life, but you just have to try harder and come back. There are so many great lessons in all of sports. And I think it's important for kids, both boys and girls, men and women, to get involved in some type of, plus it's healthy, you know? So I was thrilled that I was on my high school baseball team. I was not good. I was on the team. I was good enough to be on the team. I was a typical left-handed pitcher, great fastball, no idea where it was going. I swear I had innings where I would strike out a guy, walk a guy, hit a batter, strike out another guy, walk the bases full, and then strike out the side. I did that. There were also innings where those runs would all score, but that's another story.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, I know we talked about the song and the culture and everything. The Rays have, kind of changed their own culture by not being one of the teams with the biggest budget, not maybe with the biggest marketing. Hell, we didn't even know the team was going to stay in Tampa. It was going to go to Canada or whatever.
Right.
With all that being said, the one thing I think that they've found their identity doing was finding a way to build within, finding a way to find youth and upcoming players and turning them into potential all-stars or great players. And with that being said, it's resulting in going to a World Series, making several playoff appearances. They're currently 63-43, only second to the Baltimore Orioles, who's also turned the corner with their 63.
They did the same exact thing from drafting players, and they built the team up because they were pretty horrendous for so many years, and they did the same exact thing. It's nice to see that they're not just buying a winning team, that they're building it. And what's different to me this year is the Rays are hitting. The last couple of games they've had some trouble. The bats have gone cold, but they have been so exciting to watch, and so many guys that come up to plate, they can go yard. They were on pace for a while to set record for the home runs in the season. That's right. So everybody that comes up, you go, man, we're down 2 runs, but there are 2 runners on base. We can tie this up with one swing. So that's what's really exciting this year. The relief pitching makes me a little bit nervous sometimes. Again, same thing. Control. I hate it. And look, I walked a lot of guys. But when they walk somebody, particularly the leadoff hitter, late in the game and you're only up by a run, like I get nervous. I get really, But then you got Pete Fairbanks. Fairbanks is throwing the ball 100 miles an hour. I don't know how anybody hits a ball that comes in 100 miles an hour.
It's like, how do your eyes lock on that?
I know, yeah. And then if it's a curveball or a slider, it's just like, holy cow, So there's a tremendous amount of talent. Also, I don't know if you know this, but when the Rays first started, we carried their Sunday games on Channel 10. I don't know, a couple of years, and I was part of the pregame show. So that was really a lot of fun, a little different thing for an investigative reporter, but they let me do that. And it was terrific to, be on the field with them, be there, and see batting practice and them working out. Being a baseball player, they put in a lot of time. You see them for those 9 innings, but they're 2-3 hours early, fielding practice, batting practice every single day. It's a long, long day for these guys.
Yes, absolutely. It is a long day, and stressful on your bodies, and just try to keep your composure going day to day. And like I said, it's been fun to watch the changing, the pendulum swing of this team, being with all the negativity that's happened to them. Baltimore too. What you said, Baltimore. First thing I think about is all the riots and everything going on. I remember they had to cancel games when all that was going on in Baltimore. It was dark times or whatever. It's good to see guys like the Rays and the Orioles all changing the way and not having to open up the checkbooks, because clearly that doesn't always work. Just ask the Rays and just ask the Red Sox. That doesn't always work, just opening up the checkbook.
That's right.
And speaking about opening up the checkbooks, there's of course, this is always fun in any sport. The trade rumor, the Rays and Diamondbacks being interested in Hicks, and Ohtani, again interested in Ohtani and acquiring.
Who wouldn't be? Who would?
What do you think about all that?
Well, look. First of all, they would have to pay him probably more than the entire payroll to get him. That's one thing you've got to think about. I don't see him playing in Tampa Bay. I just can't imagine. And now the Angels have said they're going to keep him for the rest of this season. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. At the end of the season, is he a free agent at the end of this season? I am not sure, to tell you the truth.
If I had to imagine, it has to be, because either they don't want to pay him or whatever it is. That's the only reason why you would do that at this point. Because right now, if you still got him under arbitration and all that, why would you? That'd be the only way, unless he's such a distraction on the team, which I don't think that is either. I just think they're trying to, I guess, get some trade capital and some picks or whatever, and keep.
Well, yeah, they haven't made the playoffs in I think 4 years. I think it's been rough time for the Angels.
Mhm.
So even though they've got the best player that you and I will ever see in our lifetime, there is no question about it. I mean, I saw Ted Williams play. I saw Mickey Mantle play. Ernie Banks, whom I love. Roberto Clemente. I have seen some great Willie Mays. I've seen some great
Legends
players
right
in my life, but there is no one like that. And then he could pitch.
Yep.
I mean, come on.
It would be great as far as marketing if, let's just say, hypothetically that happened. But on the flip side, you would kind of have to give up what I just said earlier about you having your own culture of building within your stable and things like that. You're going to probably have to give up a lot of those studs.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd want a Rosarena, they'd want Wander Franco, they'd want Yandy Diaz, and probably.
And those are all Tampa guys. They've made this team to just get rid of all those guys.
Yeah,
they're probably putting butts in seats right now.
They
those
are.
Guys.
They're averaging about 18,000 a game, which is decent. You should be about 25,000, but they're getting a nice crowds and they're into it. And the nice thing is, the majority of the crowds, even when the Yankees are in town, are wearing Rays shirts. Obviously, there are a lot of Yankee fans because they train here and people identified with them. But there are more and more Rays fans. I mean, like the Bucks, it used to be when Green Bay came to town. When Green Bay came to town, when we were in the Central Division,
I remember that game.
It was like another home game for Green Bay because it's the middle of winter in Green Bay. Do you want to stay in Green Bay or do you want to go to Tampa Bay and watch your team? And it was just crazy, because they played twice a year, once there, once here. And it was always more Green Bay fans, but obviously that has changed over the years for the Bucks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of change, a big change has happened. Speaking of going from the legend and Tom Brady himself to, I don't know what you want to call it now, a fallen star and Baker Mayfield trying to be a phoenix to rise from the ashes, build his way into Tampa Bay. I mean, what is your thoughts on that? Because of a man that knows a lot of change in Tampa Bay, you're one of them. I mean, here's another one.
Look, when you have a Tom Brady, that comes along once in a lifetime for your team. Mayfield, I mean, he had shown flashes of brilliance and flashes of mediocrity, or even worse, and with the NFL quarterback, it's very tough to perform year after year after year. Look at Russell Wilson. I mean, he was so good in Seattle. He goes to Denver and flops, right?
Head coaching makes a lot of difference.
Oh, it does. It does. And
Hackett should have never have gotten that job. There's several guys that should have never got jobs. Joe Judge should have never got that job in New York. And then Hackett's another one. You couldn't. So when you coach a guy like Russ Wilson, what are you going to tell him? He's won Super Bowl. He's been league MVP. You're Joe Schmo coach that has no background at all, no swag to him. Right. And you're trying to tell a possible Hall of Famer what to do. Sean Payton can do that.
Right.
Hackett can't do that.
Yeah, and I think the Broncos will do much better, obviously, with Sean Payton than a.
I mean, that was so funny too. It's like Caleb. I don't know how much time you catch Caleb. He was drafted with the Bucks in 2015. We were just recently on talking about the boxing Spence Crawford fight coming up, and we were talking about all of that. And he told me months ahead of time. He said, "Blake," said, "you can't say anything." He said, "But the Broncos have already hired Sean Payton." I said,
wow.
I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, they've already hired him. They offered him this much money. So I ain't gonna tell you who told me, but it's already happened. So this was months prior. So this whole time I'm sulking on this information. I can't say anything. So the first thing I think about is God, what is his name? Slipping my mind. Old Miami head coach that said about racially hiring and make the league try to put.
Oh yeah.
God, what is his name?
Cow.
He was with the Dolphins.
I'm having a mind fart too.
The Steelers now, but that was all going on at that time, and Broncos were one of the teams that he brought up with. That's when he said Elway came into the meeting drunk and they didn't take the interview serious because they already had their guys hired and all that. And it was just funny me watching Twitter when Broncos had interviewed the black head coach out of Stanford, knowing they weren't going to hire him.
Yeah.
You had, me knowing all this information at the time, I'm like, everything this man said is true. Because they just brought in this guy from Stanford to interview for a head coaching job that he has no shot of getting because you've already promised Sean Payton the job. So you're literally just going through the motions of the Rooney Rule just as a chore, I guess. So
yeah, because the league requires it. That's exactly right. But I know how you felt. It's like when I used to get an off the record tip, and someone would say, "Okay, here's the story, but you got to find the paperwork and all that. But if you look for it, you'll find it." And I'd always be in great fear that one of my competitors was going to get it
right
before me. Fortunately, it didn't happen too often because I had some great sources. But I knew something was going on, but I couldn't go with it because I didn't have the proof. And I'm digging each day to find the proof and all that. That's so I know exactly how you felt and you wanted to say something, but you can't burn your sources.
No.
You know, number one rule in journalism is first of all, be truthful and state of the facts. That's number one rule. But among those top rules, never burn a source or you'll lose all your sources. You know, I used to tell my off-the-record sources that I would go to jail before I would reveal who told me. It would have been great for my career anyway. But
I mean, yeah, you could.
That's like
you could market that.
Yeah. It's like the couple of times that I was attacked, and it was very rare. But when I was being attacked in the story and the cameras rolling, I mean, physically attacked, I was going, "Oh my God, this story's going to win an Emmy," and they always did.
He said, "Oh my God, you guys are helping me right now, but I just
want
to make out of here alive."
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, I'm sure you got plenty of those stories, especially being an investigative reporter.
They're all in my book.
Yeah.
Let me plug my book. Bad News for You is Good News for Me. It's available on Amazon and Audible, and it tells not all. My editor cut it down in half, but to make it readable, there's a ton of stories, including about the Bucs, about the sale of the Bucs, the threats to move and all that, and about the Rays and the birthing of the Rays. So those stories are in there, plus a bunch of investigative stories and all that stuff. So I had to plug the book. I always promise my publisher when I do an interview or where I give a speech, I always plug the book.
It's available on Amazon, right?
On Amazon, and then I did an Audible version where I recorded it as well. So either way.
So it's you talking in the book the whole time?
Oh yeah.
Well, look at that. Look at that, folks. You get narrated not by Morgan Freeman, but you get it from Mike Deeson. Hey, speaking of sale, you may be flickering my head. A topic, a little short clip I talked about a couple of days ago when it was hot news at the time. You're a guy that's been around for a while, so you, like I said, you've seen things and you have different feelings about stuff. What do you think about the sale of the Washington Commanders now with this new owner, Magic Johnson being a part owner, have shares in the team as well, which he owns part of the Dodgers as well, I believe so. But what do you think about all of that?
Well, I got to tell you, I watched the interview he did when he broke down. I don't know if you saw that. It was so emotional. I'm a big Magic Johnson fan. You know, I think he's a class guy. I think he's a nice guy.
Smart businessman.
Obviously a smart businessman. And if you haven't seen it, to any of your viewers, look for it on Google or YouTube. It's so emotional. He breaks down crying. And so I'm thrilled. Dan Snyder was one of the worst owners of any sports team around. And I heard, speaking of that, one of the people, who was it? It might have been the broadcaster for the Redskins, saying the name Commanders is not etched in stone.
There's a rumor about that right now.
Yeah, you heard that too? Yeah, I don't know.
So again, I can't give up my sources and stuff like that.
I wouldn't want you to.
Yeah. So he was under NDA for a while. Of course, that's what you do when you work for an organization.
Yeah.
He told me, and I could hear the tone in his voice, so I know shit was real when he was telling me. He's like, Blake, let me tell you this. He said there is a lot going on with this team that ain't nobody know what's going on. He said just sit and wait. You're gonna see a whole bunch of stuff come out. And you're talking about from these emails, you're talking about stuff that they were doing with cheerleaders and from what I heard, a lot of it, Gruden, not John Gruden, but Jay and Snyder were not in the facility a lot of the time. They were out doing other things. Right. And then you had Trent Williams speak near dying. You had Alex Smith down there losing his leg. It was just a spill of thing after thing going on with that team within those four walls of that building. But back to the reason why I brought that up, I believe that he might change the team because you're a new owner. There's obviously a stain of Dan Snyder across this facility, and there will. 24 years, I believe he's owned the team, and there's some good years, but there's since the past there's been a lot of bad. And you coming into a business, just like I say, you bought a McDonald's, and the McDonald's that one had a bad reputation, 1 star, 2 stars of service. First thing you got to do is try to build your new identity in that organization and try to implement your vision of it, and let your customers and your community want to come there knowing that's not what it was anymore. And I'm sure that's exactly what this guy wants to do coming in here. That's why you bring in a guy, a personality in Magic Johnson that's going to bring that spark, that's going to bring that fire to that team and an organization. So I believe they might change. I think they should. Yeah. I don't care if anybody cares if you're changing the name again. It needs to be changed because there's a lot of things wrong that was affiliated with that name, and this man doesn't need to carry that burden.
Yeah, let me tell you, I've got a great story about the Redskins. The first Super Bowl that was in Tampa was in 1984, where the Redskins played the Raiders. And the Redskins had won the Super Bowl the year before. They were planning on repeating and all that stuff. And
Madden, isn't it?
Huh?
The Raiders, that was John Madden coaching that team, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah, in 84, yeah. But anyhow, one of my friends from Norfolk, Virginia, I worked in Norfolk for 10 years before I came here. By this time, I'm in Tampa, and he was at one of the TV stations in Washington. He was a sports producer. And we went out to dinner between the 6 and 11 o'clock show. And we got back from dinner, and he was getting ready for the 11. The Redskins hotel at the time was the Marriott on West Shore in Cyprus, right near Jefferson High School in Tampa. So we get back from dinner, and there's an exercise room that we happen to walk through. In the exercise room, in a hot tub, is John Riggins in a full white suit like from Saturday Night Fever, passed out like this, just in the hot tub, fully clothed. And I said to my friend, I think the Skins are partying a little bit too much. Doesn't look good for them. Now, as it turned out, and I think they were, and the Redskins got killed by the Raiders. Marcus Allen was the MVP, as I recall. Riggins was the leading ground gainer for the Skins, the only one who scored a touchdown for the Skins, but he was just passed out. But yeah, he had a little bit. Riggins liked to drink. Do you know he was at a dinner where George Bush, Papa Bush, was speaking, and he was sitting at a table with then Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor.
Wow.
And wait, he got drunk and was lying on the floor and apparently making noise. And Sandra Day O'Connor said, John or Mr. Riggins, can you get up? And he looked up and he went, lighten up, Sandy.
He said, I'm living life right now.
I'm living life. So
let me do me right now.
That's so that's my best Redskins story.
Those are awesome, man. I'm sure you got plenty of them, and you got plenty you can only tell off the record. But that's part of the business. It's funny you tell that. There was I had a conversation with a Bucs player from the 2010 era around there, and I told him on social media, and we talked and we chuckled about it. I said, dude, you don't remember me, do you? And he was like, kind of, sort of. I was like, I dragged you from the club to your hotel as you were passed out drunk, and had a game. I think 2 days or the night before, and I got you out of there before anybody even recognized who you was. I dropped you off at the hotel. He was like, "Holy shit!" He was like, "Okay, I remember that night."
Was that the Raheem Morris era?
Huh?
Was that the
Raheem Morris era?
Yeah, well, Raheem liked to party, so they said.
Yeah, there was a lot going on behind closed doors with that team.
Right.
But it just goes back to say I bring that up because there's always that party culture here in this area, and it always scares me sometimes. Depending on that's why these guys got to be between us and Miami, and well, maybe not so much Jacksonville, but us and Miami. You got to be very careful who you bring here because there's a lot of distractions here with women and the beaches and the lifestyle here. You can get a nasty drug habit down here with, having money and all that stuff, but, I always get scared about, who they pick up here because you're not sure how they're going to adapt.
Be disciplined, right. Yep.
He said, yeah, you saying Riggins party sprawled out. I said, that doesn't surprise me. It's just, I'm not mad. We all get mad at you want your players to be serious at all times and live a straight, narrow life, thinking about the game and only the game. But at the end of the day, doing this, and I have to think from both Broads' perspective, I'm a former player myself, and thinking about, how you deal with things in life. You don't know what this man's dealing with at home. You don't know if CTE was a thing back then. Like, I don't know what going on in his head. Maybe that's how he deals with his life, when he's away from football. I don't know. That's why I try not to judge people like that.
And the other thing that we forget, Blake, is these are kids. For the most part,
they're in their 20s.
They're in their 20s. They have more money than they have ever, most of them, had in their lives. I mean, and hopefully the smart ones, put it away. Like Gronk, from what I understand, Gronk lived off his royalties from the commercials and all, and invested his
salary. That's what Shaq did too.
Yeah. Okay, that's a smart thing to do. But a lot of these guys, come from nothing. Sports made them what they are, and now they're millionaires, and they think this is going to last forever. I mean, the average NFL season player lasts 3.5 seasons. I mean, we talk about the guys who have been there for 20 years and all that stuff.
That's very rare.
Right. NFL, not for long.
Right. You get 10. You've made it if you've gotten to the 10-year marker.
Absolutely.
You're in the upper echelon era, regardless if you're a full-time player or part-time. If you're a full-time, full-time starter, and you've done that for 10 seasons. My hat's off to you because you've achieved what a lot can't do.
That's right. The only thing that seems forever is being a coach. You shuffle from one team to another.
Being a former player and then coming to coach, you come in there and try to coach for an old team you played for. Like Dan Campbell has done an amazing job changing that organization. Right there. I was, for one, I'll admit when I'm wrong. I did not think he would do that. He had me turned off by his original speech about the biting the knees and all that stuff. But since then, he's done a great job changing the culture of that team. But you play in the league for that long, man, and then the way your body's getting beat up. And speaking of your body's getting beat up, what is your thoughts on the whole running back market change? I just had you probably remember old running back. Actually, I played with his brother Marcus. He just played. I think Adrian played in the league 9 years, so he was around that 10-year marker. Played for the Jets. Adrian Morrell, he was there with.
Oh yeah, Martin, of course, yes.
And the Arizona Cardinals. And I asked him an interesting question. We'll talk about off the air about Simeon Rice because they were teammates in Arizona. But I asked him.
I interviewed Simeon a lot of times, and I never understood what the hell he was saying. Honestly, he was always extremely nice to me, but he would say some stuff, and I would go, "That must be very deep," because I can't figure out. He would come out with some of the craziest things, but I liked Simeon. I thought he was a terrific player.
Yeah, he was a great guy, and like I told Adrian, I think Simeon was kind of like that body mold that a lot of guys want now in defensive linemen, a long, lengthy basketball type body now. I think a lot of people look for that in edge rushers now, but and he's not in the Hall of Fame, and I think he has the numbers to do it. But
I do too. And thank God we got Ronde in the Hall of Fame. That he so deserved it. I still remember that interception in Philadelphia. Everybody's all-time favorite play. So what I knew, the deal was I wasn't covering that game, but if the Bucs won, I was going to be going to the Super Bowl. Yeah. So we had a bunch of friends. We had a bunch of friends at our house watching the game. He intercepts it, and I'm screaming, "Run, Ronde, run!" And I'm going to the Super Bowl. I'm going to the Super Bowl. And
he said, "We both winning right now."
Yeah, that's right. It was so exciting. But yeah, and what a nice guy he is. Truly, one of the nicest men that I have met in pro sports. He truly is a wonderful, wonderful person. But I'm glad he's in the Hall, and I think Simeon needs to be considered there. I also, speaking of the Bucs, I was glad to see Will Golston re-signed. Did you see that?
I think this is best fit for him with the style of defense. I've always said he was a one-gap run stuff in defense. He was never even at Michigan State, he was never that defensive end that can bend that corner and all that stuff. He was never that guy.
No.
Yeah, so
but they called it. Listen, you heard his name called a lot on tackles the last couple of years. I think he's really improved a lot. So I'm glad he's back. I miss Cameron Brate. I thought Brate always stepped up to the plate.
He was a Winston.
He wasn't Gronk. I mean, there's no other. Gronk was just Well, he's the GOAT at that position, as far as I'm concerned, too. But I thought that Brate did a great job. Obviously, smart guy, went to Harvard, and also another really nice guy. Yeah,
he was always genuine, and like I say, he was one of those NFL stories you like to hear. Played in the league 7+ years now.
Yeah,
and, I mean, he got majority of his money off of Jameis Winston. That was Winston's guy. I mean, Winston got a lot of guys paid. A lot of people talk about Jameis's interceptions, but he got a lot of guys paid. I tell guys like Russell Shepard, I'm like, you don't remember that guy? He was a quarterback at LSU, played wide receiver for the Bucs, then went to the Panthers and got paid. There was a lot of wide receivers. Adam Humphries was. He was a Tampa favorite. We loved him. I would have loved to see him with Tom Brady because he fit that Julian Edelman type role and all that. I would have loved to see Adam Humphries with Tom Brady and see how that would have came because he had a lot of catches with Jameis. So
yeah, you know who else was really good? And this is maybe before your time, but Dave Moore.
Oh, I know
does
Dave.
The broadcast.
He's a PA guy.
Yeah, we used to call Dave Third and Dave.
Money down, baby.
Yeah. He and also one of the nicest guys. Let me tell you a quick story. Did an interview before the Bucs had the week off before they went to St. Louis for the game, the NFL playoff game where the Bert Emanuel rule came out. I was at that game too, and we had no idea what was going on when they had the timeout. But anyway, did an interview at Dave's house for a special we were doing, and I got there. His daughter is about 4 or 5 years old at the time. And as we're talking to Dave on his couch, his daughter keeps jumping up in front of the camera going, "Hi, hi, hi." So Dave realizes this isn't going to work. So, and my photographer, I thought was going to kill her. But in fact, he looked around his camera, put his glasses down and went, "Do something." But Dave said, "Honey, sit on the couch next to me." They had an Irish setter sitting next to us, just the nicest dog. And she sits on the couch and starts patting the puppy, go, "Nice puppy, nice puppy." And Dave finally said to his wife, "Honey, why don't you go with your mommy?" But also one of the nicest guys. And I think he's a great color man. He calls it as he reminds. It's like Phil Esposito. I just love Phil because he'll call a play and say, "Oh, that's terrible. You're out of position." Same with Dave. He'll explain why it's not right. And I love BA and the Rays broadcast. And I can't talk about the Rays without mentioning Dave Wells. What a loss that was.
Yes.
What a nice man he was. And that is just such a loss because I thought he and Andy were the perfect radio team. Here's what makes good radio baseball. And I did some play-by-play earlier on in my career. You got to have two guys that seem like friends, and they're watching a ball game together. and you're just hearing their discussion going back and forth in between. Baseball is easy to do play-by-play. It's the ability to talk in between the pitches, particularly on radio. I mean, it's doing hockey. I did hockey. I was a ring announcer once in a minor league hockey team. But to follow hockey and do the play-by-play, you really got to be up. Baseball, you got your time. It's relaxed and all that stuff. But I thought he and Andy were the perfect pair, and it's a real loss for our area.
Yeah, it is, especially when, like I said, you lose icons like that. I mean, it's going to be the exact same when Gene Deckerhoff, whenever that happens. It's going to be the exact same. Florida State, Tampa Bay
and Gene's not doing Florida State anymore. I don't know who's going to do the broadcast this year. If they must have named somebody.
You haven't heard it because it should have been all over the internet by now.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
Spot to fill.
But he did retire from Florida State.
Yeah,
because he took some crazy flights where they would have a Florida State game in Tallahassee on Saturday night, and somehow he'd get to Kansas City the next day by 1 o'clock in time for the game.
Never sounded like he was tired either.
No.
Gene Deckerhoff, I will always remember when I first started, following the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm like, this guy is very animated. He keeps you very engaged in the game, and he would always say, Jameis Winston's a shotgun side card right, or was it Warwick Dunn? And Sean King. It's just how he painted the picture for you. And they're like, he's got a touchdown. This is how he always left you in suspense with the way he talked. And when it would be an interception or whatever, it's just fun to listen to that guy, and just guys like him, even Steve.
Well, I got to tell you, one of my best friends, and the guy I did my first radio broadcast with, he was a fraternity brother, a roommate, is a guy by the name of Brad Sham. He has been the Cowboys play-by-play announcer for as long as I've been in Tampa. I started in Tampa about the same time he started with the Cowboys. And every time the Cowboys are in town, we either have drink, or last time we had lunch together because they had the Monday night game. Brad Sham is just absolutely unbelievable. If they play highlights of Cowboys games, listen for him. He has an encyclopedic memory, a great guy, a great play-by-play guy. He is the Gene Deckerhoff of Dallas. Yeah, and he is just terrific. And like I said, I did my first broadcast ever in 1966 with Brad. We did University of Missouri play-by-play baseball together. We did a sports show. So I just had to give a shout out in case there's anybody who's listening who's from Dallas. It's immediately a recognizable name.
Absolutely. I said you always got to recognize those icons, because those guys you just never forget, man.
That's right.
You just never forget, and they have a place in your heart when it's with the sports world. It's just a fun thing, with sports. So I'd be like, people don't like sports. I get it's not your thing, but I don't know. It's just the way you bring people together, and the way you share stories and spark conversations and things like that.
It's true. In this area on Mondays, if the Bucs have won, everybody's in a good mood. It brings the area together. There's a commonality about us. And if we lose, we're in a bad mood. Let me tell you that some people think that the Glazers don't really care, didn't care for a while. I want to tell you, Brian Glazer, who I know better than Joel, although I know Joel, and I used to run into each other at Publix. He lived not too far from me at the time. He's moved since. And I would run into him after a Bucs loss, we would stand in whatever aisle we were in, like just two fans, and we would talk just like two guys, not like he was the owner of the team or that I was covering anything.
Two men.
Yeah. So I mean, it killed him when they lost the game. It really, really did. So I don't think they get all the credit that they deserve. I mean, compared to Hugh Culverhouse, So who traded away Doug Williams because I think he was sort of prejudiced and didn't want to pay a black man that type of money. Really, it just was disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And let me tell you, I don't know if you ever saw Doug Williams play, But
I'm very familiar with Doug.
yeah, so
I'll never forget the touchdown pass on his knees.
When he was here, the Bucs could be down by 2 touchdowns, and 2 possessions later, bam, 80-yard touchdown. Bam, 80-yard touchdown. He could sling that ball like you would not believe. And a nice guy. He loved our sports director at the time, Ken Brew. I'm going way back. He was sports director at Channel 10. And he and Ken were really good friends. In fact, Doug came to the station for Ken's going away party at the station. So just another really, really nice man, but one hell of a football player. But anyway, I don't think the Glazers get the credit. People are always mad at the owner, it seems like,
I think you're right. I think that stigma has changed, and I think it started by getting a competent GM in there, a guy who had very good connections, which helps. It helps with coaching, and it helps being a GM when they have connections. When you have connections, you can bring in guys that know have the recipe for winning. They're gonna bring in guys that can coach skill position spots, that can coach, manage the other departments of the team. And that's how you set up a successful business model. Again, I always like to use that word because it is a business. That's how you establish a business model. You bring in guys who have good connections, and you use those connections, and you keep bringing an influx of guys in to replace the guys that obviously move on and get better jobs. That's
hey, Blake, wait a second. My battery is running low on my computer. I must have pulled out the plug. There I go. We should be back.
Good.
Okay. I just didn't want. I just wanted to. The thing came up there and said your battery is running low, and I must have stepped on the cord. I've got so many cords here for my music, radio, and TV stuff.
I know.
My office looks like a snake pit with all.
Oh Lord. That's the sacrifices of being your own boss, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right down there at Decent Media Studios. You guys are seeing it live and in action. That's where the magic happens.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about Doug Williams and that era and all that. I think Doug came on Mike Clayton's show, and he had his TV show for a while. I'm sure you ever got that. And Doug talked about stuff like that, how racial disparities and things like that. I think a media member at the Tampa Bay Times asked Doug what he thought about, when they sing the national anthem and things like that. And Doug said, I wasn't really even thinking about any of that. He's like, when I stood across the sidelines sometimes, he said, I just counted how many black players I saw on the team. And he said, okay, so they went down the next day. I can't remember who's the head coach at the time.
John McKay.
Yeah, called him in the office. And it's like, hey, Doug, he said, who was the owner of the Tampa Bay Times at the time? I'm sure you would know better than me. But he said, Doug, he's like, you can't say that kind of stuff on the air. Like, what are you talking about? He said, you talking about you're counting black players on the team and stuff like that. While national television is on, you can't really say that stuff.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, so it's interesting hearing Doug, tell those stories, because you always hear about, racial discrepancies and things like that. But there's a lot of people that have actually witnessed it, seen it happen. And then there's those that, does it really happen? Is it really, are they over exaggerating? So, it's always interesting because I can't say I've experienced the things Doug has, because I haven't. I've seen my fair share of it, but it's
unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, we all we've seen our fair share of it, but
I got to tell you, Michael Clayton. Do you see Michael very often?
Yeah,
he used to work at Channel 10. Another great guy. Mm-hmm. So I've got a great story about Michael. When he first started dating his wife, who is beautiful and also a physician. You aware of that? So
no, I know she was a physician. I knew she was in some type of medical field.
Yeah, she's a physician.
Okay.
And so he didn't tell her that he was a pro football player. She said, what do you do? When they met, she said, I'm in construction, because he did have a little construction company. And they were at the mall, and they passed one of these sports shops, and there's all these Clayton jerseys. And then all of a sudden, somebody said to Michael Clayton, and he didn't want to tell her. She didn't want her to be going out with him because he was a football player.
She wanted to be authentic.
That's right. So I thought it's a great. So if you see him, say, I know your story. A great guy, just a nice man. I enjoyed the short time I worked with him.
Yeah, Mike has always been genuine. Yeah, he's very religious. He's very into always giving back. With my buddy Stephen Rollins, coworker of mine, always has. He says he calls that planting the seed. He always calls that you do something kind for somebody else. You said you're planting a seed, and you see what it grows into. That's kind of what Mike does. I've seen him done several things in the community. I've seen him help out a homeless guy, people trying to get credit and things like that. Mike's done numerous things.
Yeah,
for
he is a
people.
top-notch guy. And also, let me give a shout-out to Todd Bowles. And this has nothing to do with football, but he went back and finished his degree.
His promise.
You know? Yeah, it was a promise he made, and he wanted his kids to know. Look, he didn't need to. I mean, he's getting paid millions of dollars. He, a head coach of an NFL team, but went back and finished his degree. Just like Derek Brooks got a master's after being on the Bucs. It's just terrific to see these guys do that and realize that education is so important. Shaq O'Neal got a PhD from Barry University. It's a real university in education. So education is the key to everything, to getting out of poverty, to moving ahead in the world and all. So I really, no matter what you think of Todd Bowles and his defense sometimes being soft, I really respect the man. I really, really respect the man for that. So I had to give a shout out there.
No, you always got to give shout out to people, show them love, for accomplishments, because lo and behold, a lot of people like to take shots at you negatively and never want to give you anything positive. So that's always what's up, Mike. I know you're always about that because you're a Tampa Bay man. You were born in Chicago, but you're a Tampa Bay man.
I am. Tampa Bay is my home. I love Tampa Bay.
Mike,
it's been very good to me. It's been very good to me.
Hey, planting the seed, it always comes back to you.
That's right.
Mike, I loved having you on. It's always fun having these conversations. We got to do this again. Plug in again everything that you got going on, your song, your book, your media. Tell everybody what you got going on in your retirement.
Okay. So real quickly, I have the book, Bad News for You is Good News for Me, on Amazon and Audible. I do a podcast and radio show called Third Opinion. It comes from an old joke called Two Jews, Three Opinions. I do it with a woman, and it's the Tampa Jewish Federation asked us to do it. I've been doing it. We've done it 4 years now. We've done more than 200 shows, and it focuses on the unfortunate fact that anti-Semitism is on the rise so much in our country and throughout the world. And let's see, what else am I doing? I'm doing a lot of speeches and all. I hooked up, I say this, with the State Department, where I'm speaking to foreign journalists. Last week, I spoke to a bunch of journalists from Kurdistan, and they didn't speak a word of English, but they had translators and all that stuff. And I'm spending a lot of time with my grandkids. So life is wonderful. I am so blessed, and it's a thrill being with you. And let me give another shout out to you. You have done such a wonderful job. I've seen you grow from wanting to do this to being a really competent and excellent broadcaster. And you had a dream, and you keep going toward it. And I support you. I shout you out. And I'm proud to call you my friend.
I appreciate that, because it was a lot of work learning all this stuff. I'm not a master of the game like you. I didn't go to school for broadcasting. So if you really want something, you're right. You got to work for it and put in the work, because once you do, you get the results of the fruits of the labor.
You know what I always said, Blake? I might not be the smartest. I might not be the best, but I will outwork anybody. Having a good work ethic goes across in sports and in life.
Absolutely. They're both the same. They're both the same, one and the same. And that's why I always say my quote, and we'll end this as we always do with my quote. You're the master of everything. What you do with your life, what you do with it is entirely up to you. Mike, it's always a blessing having you on. I can't wait to get you on again and talk some more.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
See you guys.
Bye.